So the Prophet ﷺ said, أعلاها القول لا إله إلا الله. That the highest part of Eemaan is the statement La ilaha illallah. That's a proof for what? Statement on the tongue. وَأَدْنَاهَا, and the lowest part of Eemaan, إِمَاطَةُ الْأَذَى عَنِ الطَّرِيقِ, is to remove something harmful from the road, and that is the proof for actions on the body parts. And then he said, Al-Haya'u min al-Iman, modesty or shyness is from Eemaan, which is the belief that is in the heart, because Haya is an internal characteristic. And the proof for the fact that Eemaan fluctuates, it goes up and down, is the fact that the Prophet ﷺ said that it has a high part and it has a low part. So all 5 principles of Eemaan are mentioned in this particular hadith. And this hadith is a very vital component of our minhaj, of our methodology, and of our belief, because you have many deviant sects and groups who believe contrary to this. You have the Murji'ah who believe that Eemaan is just a belief in the heart, statement on the tongue, and actions have no place in Eemaan. So the major sinner from amongst us, he has the Eemaan of Jibreel alayhi salam and the Eemaan of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. He could commit zina, all type of fawahish wal fusuq. He could commit zina, drink khamr, gamble, all types of major sins, and it does not affect his Eemaan. As many Muslims today who may not ascribe to the sect of the Murji'ah, but they hold this belief. They have this concept. They don't pray, they don't fast, or they may fast but they don't pray, which is ironic. But then you come to them and you tell them that you should establish the salah. He said, Al-Iman fil qalb. Iman is in my heart. Iman, I believe from here. Your belief is no different than the belief of the Christians. And Nasara, the Christians, they say we believe. That's all you have to do is just believe. And you find many Muslims who take the same approach towards Islam. And then you have the Khawarij on the other end, who believe that Iman doesn't fluctuate. You're either a believer or you're a disbeliever. And they have their proofs, or what they consider ma yaz'umuna bi annahu dalil. As they say, as from their proofs, they say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَهُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَكُمْ فَمِنْكُمْ كَافِرٌ وَمِنْكُمْ مُؤْمِنٌ. يعني أن الله سبحانه وتعالى لم يذكر القسم الثاني، القسم الثالث، ذكر كافر وذكر المؤمن. That the Khawarij, they believe that Iman doesn't fluctuate. Iman doesn't go up and down. لا يتجزأ. Rather, Iman is one thing. You're either a believer or you're a disbeliever. And they use as proof for this, from the proofs that they use for this, is the statement that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that He is the one that created you, and some of you are believers and some of you are disbelievers. And they say that here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't mention a third category. So you're either a believer or a disbeliever. So the moment you commit a major sin and you don't make tawbah for it, to them you are a disbeliever. Because there's no third party, like Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah believes that you can be a believer and you can still you can commit major sin, but you can still be a believer. And the proof of that is found in Surah Al-Hujuraat, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِن طَائِفَتَانِ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ اقْتَتَلُوا فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَهُمَا فَإِن بَغَتْ إِحْدَاهُمَا عَلَى الْأُخْرَى فَقَاتِلُوا الَّتِي تَبْغِي حَتَّى تَفِيءَ إِلَى أَمْرِ اللَّهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that if a party of the believers fight one another, and we note that fighting is a major sin, as the Prophet ﷺ said in another authentic hadith, سِبَابُ الْمُسْلِمِ فُسُوقٌ وَقِتَالُهُ كُفْرٌ. That to disparage a believer is fusuq, is a major sin, and to kill him or to fight him is kufr. So to fight a believer is kufr. But is it the kufr that removes you from the fold of Islam? No. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this ayah in Surah Al-Hujuraat, Surah number 49, that if a party of the believers fight, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the fact that they were fighting, which is kufr, but then He called them believers, showing you that major sin does not remove you from the fold of Islam. As it was mentioned authentically on Abu Hurayrah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and the hadith of a man by the man named Abdullah yulaqab bil himar, فكان يشرب الخمر فجيء به إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم مرة بعد مرة، وقام عليه النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ومن معه بالحد يضربه بالنعل أو بغير ذلك. فجيء به يوما فقال أحد الصحابة اللهم العنه، فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لا تلعنه، وفي رواية قال لا تعين الشيطان على أخيك فإنما أنا أعلم أنه يحب الله ورسوله. On the authority of Abu Hurayrah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, who said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that a man whose name was Abdullah, who was given the nickname of Himar, who used to drink khamr, who used to drink alcohol or intoxicants, and he would come around and he would make the Prophet ﷺ laugh. But every time he would be brought, the Prophet ﷺ would whoop him. The Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba, they would whoop him with their sandals or their shirts or whatever they could find. So one time he was brought to the Prophet ﷺ intoxicated, and one of the Sahaba, he said to him, how many times are you going to be brought to the Prophet ﷺ in this manner? May Allah curse you. And the Prophet ﷺ said, don't curse him. And in another narration, the Prophet ﷺ, which is the shahid, the point of reference here, the Prophet ﷺ said, لا تعين الشيطان على أخيك. Do not assist the shaitan against your brother. Doesn't mean blood brother, doesn't mean blood by kin, by folk, that it was his kinfolk, but it means brother in Eemaan. Showing you that major sin, as we know drinking khamr is a major sin, does not remove you from the fold of Islam. He said, do not assist the shaitan against your brother, for indeed all I know is that he loves Allah and His Messenger. And the proofs and evidences that major sin do not remove you from the fold of Islam are many. And buhuth, researches, knowledge-based researches have been done on this particular issue by the likes of Shaykh Al-Albani rahimahullah ta'ala, and the likes of Shaykh Al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, and Ibn Qayyim, and others from the ulama salafan wa khalafan.